Okay, I'm going to record this just in case. Okay, hi everyone, welcome to the stream. I think I need to adjust a second. Do I still need to adjust it? Yes, I think so. Okay, so today I will talk to Justin Keys, and we will talk about neovim, open source, and well, quite a lot of different things. So where's the window? I don't know. Here's it. Here's it. Hi. So I think people can now see you. So yeah. Going to pop out chat. So we will talk about different things, and we will take questions from chat. I have a bunch of questions written here. I have some notes, but there is no particular order, and yeah, so it's basically going to be some live discussion.
Okay.
So, can you hear Justin? Like, Justin, please try saying something because I'd like to make sure that people can hear you.
My name is Justin Keys, and I'm the project manager of neovim.
Okay, so cool. Can you hear? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. They say yes. Awesome. So, okay. I have my first question is this: what's your favorite editor, and why is it neovim?
Why is it neovim? Because I've tried lots of editors, and it's the most flexible, and it's the one that I know the best. Okay. I started out with I spent many years on just using like Notepad++, and eventually I got sick of doing the same mechanics of. At some point, you know, programming, the mechanics of programming gets very tedious. Mm-hmm. And after, you know, programming for 8 years or 9 years, I was tired of some of those repetitive mechanics that I had been doing, you know, for most of my programming life. And I just went a little crazy and started decided to give Vim a fair chance. I had been using it since I had been using it like casually, like on Linux servers since the year 2000, but I never really gave it a fair shot. Mm-hmm. I guess I'll just go into the origin story since I'm already rambling on. So I was about to, so I donated some money to Notepad++, but I was ready to move on. And I was about to pay for Sublime Text, but I started looking into Sublime Text, and I was like, how do I, okay, it's missing this feature. I want to add this feature. Oh, okay, I have to go install this plugin. Or, you know, I have to configure this thing. Mm-hmm. And it dawned on me, well, if I'm going to do all this configuration, which is something I didn't really want to do, I might as well give Vim a fair chance and see if I can install plugins and configure it the way that I want before I pay for Sublime Text. So I ended up making Vim do what I want it to do, and I was happy with it. And I donated to Vim instead of buying Sublime Text, and then I just have been going nuts with it for the past 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That doesn't really answer your question, though. The reason that it's my favorite editor is obviously because it's very customizable, and importantly, it has some very well-designed conventions and features that work together. And the reason that that's really important is because if you're going to build on a piece of software beyond just the nucleus of the bubble that it lives in, you need like other users that can compound onto that. And in order to do that, you need like a community with strong conventions where everybody is sort of like following similar conventions so that like the plugins and the tips that they give you work together as a holistic entity instead of just a bunch of like a grab bag of like useful one-off functions. Like PHP, for example, it has like a lot of useful functions, but they don't necessarily compose together.
Yeah, makes sense.
So things. Okay.
Yeah, no, keep talking. I don't want to interrupt you.
So like IDEs and all kinds of software, a lot of times it's like it's extensible on paper, and you can extend Visual Studio and Eclipse, but when you do that, those plugins don't like work with other plugins. They're not really composable. They're not following the same conventions. They're using the Eclipse plugin ID API, but they don't like work together. Mm-hmm. Whereas like with Emacs and Vim, a lot of times you're all going to be working on the same data structures. You can pass data structures around, and you can, if a plugin is well behaved, then it will reuse those data structures or react to certain settings changes and do the right thing, ideally.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to pass live. So basically, I'm streaming to several different sources. But the main one is Watch People Code. Oops, sorry guys. And two others is YouTube. Not many people know that there is a live streaming option there. You can live stream on YouTube. And Twitch. So yeah, hi Twitch, by the way. So I'm passing a link. This is a YouTube mirror for people who have low bandwidth or some weird technical problems, or like they are on a laptop. Okay, so my next question is, how did neovim project started, and were you there from the very beginning? Because this is the question.
How did neovim start? I know exactly how it started. I spent I hung around the Vim Reddit subreddit, and I was also following the Vim Dev mailing list, and there was G. Greer's patch for timers that was rejected on Vim Dev, and then there was Taruda's patch that he submitted, which I thought was actually very courageous of him, considering that G. Greer's patch was rejected a few months earlier. I was surprised that he had spent time on trying to do to add a similar feature to Vim. But that sort of went nowhere, and then I noticed that he created a project. He quietly created a project called neovim on his GitHub. I noticed it because I was following him on GitHub, and I was actually the first user to start it. And then I asked him the next day on Reddit, what's going on with that project? And he said, and then the very next day, he actually did the bounty source because there seemed to be some enthusiasm for the project.
Okay, did you start just following the project, or did you started contributing right away? So
no, I mostly just heckled people on the issue tracker, and I reintegrated a few missing Vim features that were removed in the initial import, but I didn't always find the time to write much code in the beginning. And he didn't ask me to be project manager until around, I think it was like March or April, and the project started in February.
Okay, so like, do you mostly, okay, I mean, I'd like to ask about how the neovim project is governed and how it is organized. So could you please tell about that? Like how many people are working on it? And I know that I don't know how to pronounce the name. Is it Thiago de Taruda? Like am I pronouncing it correctly?
I say Tiago de Arruda, but I've never actually heard it pronounced. That's my best Portuguese accent.
Okay, yeah, mine too. So basically, uh, I forgot why I mentioned that. Sorry, I forgot my question. What was it? I think so. Yeah, basically
How
how
is
it's
the project
governed.
organized?
Yeah, how it's organized, how it's governed. Oh, so my question was that. So Thiago de Taruda is working full time on it right now, or not?
He's not working full time on it right now
Uh-huh.
because
I saw
um,
this link where he tried to raise money for him to work full time, right? There was some campaign for
well
that, which is
he,
really
he
interesting.
he's working blocks of time. He's working at least 2 days a week on it now.
Uh huh.
But um, he busted his ass working on it. The last half of last year, even though the original bounty source had only funded half a year, but he worked on it the whole year, pretty much full time.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, that was going to not be sustainable. So uh, now my understanding is that he's working on it in blocks of time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. And how many people are working there? So are most of them volunteers? For example, do you work in your spare time?
Yeah, only my spare time. I don't get paid on it at all,
Yeah.
nor do I have any desire to be paid
Mm-hmm.
to work on it. And in fact, the bounty source thing, in my opinion, the paying bounties on issues, I think that sort of fizzled out because generally, like the tax paperwork and stuff for that is just not even worth it. I mean, if you're going to fix a bug for $50, you're going to fix it for $0 probably too, because it's
Yeah.
going to take more than 1 hour to fix.
Yeah.
So the jury is still out on whether Bounty Source's original bounty model is going to work for any open source project. I haven't seen too many projects where it actually is used aggressively.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong though, but it depends on the nature of the project. If each bug takes hours to fix,
Mm-hmm.
$50 is not going to cut it for most people.
Okay.
So the organization of neovim is Tiago and I are the GitHub owners,
Mm-hmm.
and we have about 10 or maybe even 15 people now on the core team, and that evolved over time. We kept adding people to the project,
Mm-hmm.
and other than that, a lot of it is actually implicit, which is not necessarily a good thing. We're going to need to write down some more rules about how things are structured, but as long as it continues to hum along at the pace that it is, there's no rush to do that. I mean, maybe there should be, but it's working right now as it is. And I'm okay with that because, this is like, what Paul Graham might call the duct tape approach where,
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to like automate or formalize things until you really do need to do that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
The duct tape for that portion of the project is working okay right now. If I start to hear noise about it, we'll address it. But there's always like some other thing that has to be that has priority in the meantime.
Okay.
And the reason that works is really interesting. That's one of the most interesting conclusions that I have had from working on an open source project, is that the trust model works. And the reason that it works is because in an open source project, you recruit people who already fit the qualifications. Instead of like in a commercial company, hiring people is hard, and when you hire them, if they don't get it, then you have to figure out a way to like make them get it, because you can't get rid of them usually, or it's hard to get rid of them, or there's no one else like available to fill their place. But in an open source project, you start out with one person, and then if someone happens to come along who already gets it, who already understands how to work in the project structure, like what's expected intuitively, then you bring them on, and it just works. And that's been working so far. Like, you don't see people just committing things to master just because they feel like it. They're following the rules, and no one even had to tell them like to follow the rules. They just do it because it's intuitive. Intuition is the single most important valuable characteristic for someone who's a project member. And Linus Torvalds has mentioned that as well. He calls it good taste. So if you have people with good taste, things don't have to be communicated nearly as explicitly as you would otherwise need to communicate them in an organization that isn't organic. Open source organizations naturally are organic in most cases.
This is actually really interesting because I've never really worked on open source projects. Sometimes I send bug fixes and patches, and recently I had a talk. I talked to JDM from Mozilla, and it's kind of interesting to talk about open source because I never worked on them. So I started working with them quite a little bit. So I sent a few patches to Sova, which is a browser engine written in Rust. Yeah, so this is and this is really interesting to me. So my point here is that they have this channel, and they are very open to new contributors. They actually quite actively help them. So it was really interesting. I'm wondering how things work in neovim project. Like, do you actively try to help contributors, or I know that you have Git.
We do. I want to mention though that Servo, Rust, Node.js, they're in a different situation because they're part of a formal organization.
Yeah,
they're part of a commercial organization, and so they had to write down those explicit guidelines from the beginning because they don't have that luxury of sort of just operating on a passively, they have deadlines, they have people they already have to work with, and plus they're a more mature organization than neovim, obviously, but they already had people that they had to work with, and yeah, they need more people, and they're running at an accelerated pace. Like if we had the resources to do that, I mean, because we could use some acceleration too, then we would probably want to look at formalizing those guidelines and structuring things a little bit better for neovim. But we have missed some deadlines, and it's not like Mozilla where they have a lot riding on Servo. They have a business model riding on it. If neovim takes another year to get out the door, it's okay because our competitor is Vim, and we're, in my mind, we're still competing strongly with them. I mean, we can consider other text editors competitors as well, and maybe other text editors are like sort of acquiring features that make neovim less compelling. So there's if that happens, then yeah, we need to think about accelerating our pace. I mean, I would like to work faster anyways, but to me right now, I mean, we have a few people with the institutional knowledge that they're the only ones that are going to be able to solve the problems that we have, because there's not enough time for anyone else to come in and get intimate knowledge with certain pieces that need to be fixed. So we already have the people, the tasks are clear that need to get done. There's only a few people that can do those tasks. So it doesn't really matter if we onboard that many more people for the specific blocking issues that we have right now. Like, so, but down the road, more contributors may be a desirable thing, and more formalized structure could be beneficial down the road. But right now, our number one blocking issues aren't going to be accelerated by adding more contributors. I don't think. I could be wrong.
Okay, so you don't actually try to do that, and things just happen somehow, right? So
well,
it's kind of implicit, right?
Okay, so yes.
I mean, what happens if someone goes to your channel or to Gitter and asks, "I'd like to contribute. Is there an issue that I could work on?"
Well, we do have a very robust contributing.md document, and we have some wiki pages that we point them to, and that answers most of their questions. But we don't have any. We probably don't have as much like prioritization of tasks as we could have. So some people are working on things that aren't necessarily priorities. Some people are asking for like feature requests that are just not at the forefront of what needs to be done right now. And some people are just working on, version 1 release any quicker. They're adding features, which is fine, because one of the main goals of neovim was to make Vim more hackable. I mean, that's one of the reasons, that's one of the primary reasons it exists. So if people want to start hacking on it and adding Vim features, then there's nothing particularly wrong with that, but it also doesn't, it's sort of a distraction, at least for me right now.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So there is kind of a question from chat. You have missed deadlines. I thought there were no deadlines. I always thought that when it's done was the motto. That's the question from chat.
Is there a place I can read that question? I didn't understand the question.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I can send it to you if you need. Okay, I don't know how to use Hangouts. I need to find where. Oh, Hangouts are weird. Oh, I found it. So here's the question.
Yeah, well, okay, so the deadline I was referring to is the original bounty source had a number of very ambitious milestones listed, and we have only reached maybe 60% of those milestones. So technically, we missed a deadline in the sense that the bounty source funded 6 months of work. We worked on it for a year, and we still have not satisfied the bounty source 100%. Although I feel like we did a pretty damn good job, though.
Okay.
Tiago in particular.
Okay. So okay. Now there was a question about features. Um, so I'm going to copy and paste it just in case. Okay, yeah, there are some questions about features. Okay, so the first one is I'm going to send you to you just in case. It's the sync feature and terminal support were killer features. Anything else to look forward to?
Yeah, as far as so I consider plugin authors end users, by the way. But even if you're not a plugin author, okay, I'm gonna answer the first question.
Yeah, the first one. There are two other more questions.
Even if you're not a plugin author, when you edit your vimRC and you add a few mappings and maybe some scripts, you're essentially a plugin author at that point. Like when you edit your vimRC, you just basically made a plugin. And there's a feature that ties in the API lifecycle that I think will be very useful for plugin authors as well as people who are just scripting features in their vimRC. And I don't really know what to call it. The feature is so right now remote clients can access the API, but Vim script from within neovim itself cannot easily work with the API, and that's a feature that is going to land before the first release. That I think is another exciting feature. It's going to be on the same level as job control and the terminal. And I missed the second question that you posted.
Okay, so there was another question in chat, which is, do you see neovim becoming a full Tmax replacement? Terminal buffer and headless mode already come really close.
A full Tmax replacement? I personally would hesitate to say that, but Tiago seems very determined to make that happen. So I would say actually it's going to happen because Tiago's going to make it happen. He seems very, very interested in doing that. It could be a while, though, before we reach full parity with Tmux, because Tmux has a lot of very sophisticated options. The session management is something that Tiago is going to add support for, but there's probably like many more advanced options that I don't know about in Tmux that could take a while to implement. So calling it a full Tmux replacement depends on what your definition of that is. Every single feature in Tmux, probably not. But the main features like session management, disconnection, and then reconnection, and being able to script it, you know, we're 80% there. All we need is session management.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for answering this. By the way, if anyone has questions, just post them to chat because it's really awesome. And personally, I like getting questions in the stream. And well, so we are doing this live, and one of the points doing this live is your questions. So don't be shy. Ask questions. So I think I think there are no more questions from chat, but I also have a few questions about neovim features. I actually tried neovim a while ago, and it felt, and I'm pretty like casual user. I don't use much plugins, but I started using some plugins, and well, I tried neovim, and it was pretty stable. But and from what I can tell, it can be used as a replacement for Vim, like drop-in replacement. But like like as far as I can, if I remember correctly, one of the main points of neovim is make life for plugin for plugins easier. So some synchronous plugins can be written more easily with neovim, right?
Yep.
So could you please tell about this in more detail? What's the main issues in Vim that neovim is trying to fix in relation to plugins?
So there's two primary issues regarding asynchronous behavior. You can achieve that in Vim using the client server feature, but it can be unreliable, and it's slow if you're going to do it for something that's really high traffic, like writing a GUI that talks to Vim. And the other problem is it's not available without unless you install the version of Vim that's linked to Xorg. So on like a server that doesn't have X libraries on it, you're not going to be able to use that feature. So neovim solves that with the jobs API. It makes it very easy to call a command and then designate a callback that handles the response of that command. And it works without linking to any GUI library. Mm-hmm. And it is it's fast. Well, the jobs API is separate from the message pack API, but it's to me it's if you're at the command line in Bash and you want to run a long-running process, you can do that by sending it to the foreground. But in order to get a response from that, it's not easy to do. It's so with neovim you can do that very easily. You just you give it a callback, and it can handle the result of any command that you give it or any script. And that's powerful for plugins like Syntactic, debugging plugins. There was a demo of LLDB debugging on the Vim subreddit a few days ago, and you can have many different processes working.
Okay, we are back. Okay, we are back. Tell me if it is better. So, okay, do you think that Vim architecture makes development harder? Like for example, are there some certain issues in Vim architecture that makes your life harder as a developer?
Compared to the old Vim source code, or compared to what?
Well, okay, so I will phrase it differently. Okay, so after you started developing neovim, did you rewrite a lot of stuff, or not? Like, did you have to make significant changes in the architecture?
In Vim in Vim's architecture?
Yes.
Tiago made many far-reaching changes in Vim's architecture, and there's still some important changes coming up, such as his work on removing the break check calls in Vim, which is basically a manual way of checking for interruptions to respond to interrupt events. So like if you have a long-running script, then at the break checkpoints, it will decide if it needs to bail or not, either as a response to a user input or maybe in some cases some maxing out of like a timeout. Mm-hmm. But my understanding of that is that it makes it doesn't work well with neovim's architecture because we need a robust way of being able to interrupt more granularly because we can get events from libuv at any time. Mm-hmm. Somehow or other, it makes things brittle. I don't know exactly how, but I think it's explained in that issue that Tiago is working on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Vim is written in C. Do you think that rewriting it in some different language would help? Like, or porting neovim to some newer language like Rust or maybe Python? I don't know. Okay, it's maybe still a crazy question. But I think that writing code, like personally, I feel like writing code in C is quite difficult, and there are many ways to make mistakes, and dealing with raw pointers is kind of difficult. And like, when I have quite a lot of experience in C++, and coding in C++ is much easier to me. So what do you think about it? Do you think it could be ported into any other language? Or is it a crazy idea?
Crazy idea. You mean like rewriting it?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's a kind of hypothetical question that I thought of.
Many have tried, and they have all pretty much failed, and there's still more new projects coming out. Like there's a couple of Python Vim projects.
Yeah, there is a Vim and Rust. Yeah, that's why. Actually, yeah, I remember. That's why I wrote down that question, because someone wrote like a prototype in Rust.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So the thing is, it sounds like a fun project, but the problem is, once you people always get past the first couple steps, which is they have an interface that feels like Vim mostly, at least for like the commands, the way the commands work together. But then there's all these dark, dusty, unsexy corners that never get implemented because they're boring. They're full of corner cases that were already figured out in Vim, like with the way that it handles shell commands and redirects. That's all been figured out already. That's not going to exist in the Vim port that someone wrote for fun, because it's not a fun thing to implement. It's actually a mess.
Okay.
And things like C-scope and tags, the C-tag support in Vim is pretty good and useful, but if you were going to write a new editor, you're going to be like, this is dumb, I'm going to do it a different way. But then that's going to be yet another feature that anyone who's like used to Vim it's not going to be there, and they're going to miss it because it works in a very specific way with a number of different Vim features that, even though it's not always like what you might expect from a modern editor, there's some value to it, and it is useful, but it's not something that anyone would ever want to re-implement because it's just out. It's like 10,000, 20,000, probably 10,000 lines of code. And another thing in Vim, like probably the top 3 most useful things in Vim, one of the top 3 is the syntax engine. And even though it isn't like, it has problems like using regex to highlight syntax, what I mean is the regex engine. The regex engine, the regular expression engine in Vim, it's kind of slow, but it has a lot of features. Like it can do things with like look behind and look ahead that is either impossible or very difficult to do even in like Perl. And it makes it easy. And I mean, people forget that the primary use case of a text editor is quick and dirty. Like you're editing text. It's not meant for developing. If you want to use a real language to do something, then that's when you would drop down to, like in neovim's case, you would drop down to using a remote client. Then you can use a real programming language, and you can program against the data structures in neovim. That's what that's for. But when you're editing something, you want things to be fast. You don't want to be like writing functions just to change like a few blocks of text. And that's where the regular expression engine in Vim is really useful, because it has concepts like the current position of the cursor, or what was last visually selected, and these can all be expressed as atoms in the regular expression. You can't do that in Perl or any other regular expression engine. So rewriting that in C++, you wouldn't rewrite that part. You just continue to use the C code that's already in Vim. You probably would just bring it over. You'd paste it into your C++ project, and you say, I'm not going to touch this.
Okay. So
not only that, but so that's what I think is the really unique and clever approach of neovim, is that it's not a rewrite. We avoided.
I think it's offline. Okay, I started streaming. Let me check if we are live. Hey, can you? Okay, I'm not sure if it works properly. Okay, okay, I started streaming. Please tell me if it works better, like in chat. I'm not sure if it's better now. Oh, phew. Okay, so there were 2 questions in the chat. The first one is a question: Is neovim's target to fully replace Vim in the near future? So
yes.
Yes. So you want to replace people to stop using Vim and switch to neovim?
There's no reason to use both. Unless you're in an environment where neovim isn't available, then of course you can. I personally, if I'm on a server, I'll use Vim and I have in my vimrc, I have, a section that takes care of all the Vim stuff that doesn't need to be taken care of in neovim.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's on my workstation, if it's on your workstation or any environment where you have neovim, there's no reason to use both, as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't make sense because
yeah. Okay. So I have a bunch of questions here. So is it difficult to debug neovim? I mean, I never really looked at.
No, it's not. Yeah, well, it depends on what you're trying to debug, but in most cases, it's surprisingly straightforward. Especially once I discovered that GDB had a tune mode where it shows your source code uh, of the context that you're in. It was quite straightforward to debug an issue. Debugging a failing test varies in difficulty depending on what the problem is. If the problem is that the test is timing out, then that's difficult. That's unpleasant to debug. But all other cases are usually okay. I have if you need to debug like a unit test with the Luajit FFI. If you need to debug that in GDB, I've heard various reports on whether that's even possible, and I haven't tried it myself, so that also could be difficult. But if you're just debugging a seg fault, that's typically very straightforward, at least in my experience.
Okay. Do you use Valgrind for debugging some things like?
Yes, we. Well, do I personally? We have it enabled in our continuous integration system, as well as Clang ASAN, MSAN, TSAN, and UBSAN. Yeah, that was the other one. Undefined behavior sanitizer. We have all those enabled in our continuous integration system.
Okay. So I have some questions written here. How is the relationship? This is a question from chat. How is the relationship between neovim and regular Vim team?
I think at this point it's at least civil, if not amicable. Bram has requested that we send patches and bug reports that are relevant to Vim through the Vim mailing list, and neovim has been the source of at least half a dozen, if not more, bug fixes in Vim. And we continue to stream Vim patches back into neovim so that we don't regress from them, because the number one priority for any fork, in my opinion, is that you don't regress from origin. If you start to lose features that the other one has, then now users have to make a choice. If we have all those features and we continue to be a subset of Vim, then the choice is easy. You choose neovim. Christian Brabant, who's probably the second most prolific Vim developer, he has been somewhat active on the neovim issue tracker, and he has been cooperative, in helping us in some cases. And Bram seems to be completely fine with the project. And I guess he probably regards it as a useful source of scrutiny, just so that to make Vim more robust, at least by some non-zero amount.
Okay, this is actually interesting. Do you know what was the initial reaction from him? Like when the neovim project just started?
Yes, I do. I read the mailing post.
Yeah.
The mailing post. He said it's going to be an awful lot of work, and I don't understand what the benefit for end users will be. And that has stuck in my mind ever since. And it definitely has been a ton of work. And we're trying to get over the hump where we get Windows support so that statement is no longer echoing in my head because I'm going to be haunted by it forever if we don't get the first release out.
This is really interesting. I mean, you are so dedicated to this project. I mean, I checked your GitHub, and it's all green. It's like it's like you. I mean, like it's like you. It's like you contribute on to open source, like on every single day. Well, it's not quite. Well, not every square is green, but well, it's like a long green line. How do you?
On my GitHub?
Yeah, I checked your GitHub, and
No, okay. Yeah, I put in a lot of time into it, and it's I would like to sort of find a more reasonable plateau of activities, so where I'm not like grinding on it every day. That's just more my own personal time management question. But my personal perspective is that I'm not really interested in like working on things unless that they can benefit other people. And so I'm hoping that this turned out to have a positive effect on a lot of people, because I could take like Emacs and just sort of like hammer it into something that I like personally, but then sharing that as like a package that is available on Windows, Linux, and Mac, and that is used by a lot of people is not going to happen because
hey, are you live? I think we are live now. Test. We are live again. Is it fixed? Okay, can you see us? Okay, is it better now? I think it's better now. Oh, okay. Okay, so issues are gone. Oh, finally, this is amazing. Okay, sorry for that. It's really annoying. I know it sucks. Okay, so we are back, and apparently the issues are gone. And so there was a question about from Anonymous Void PHP. After neovim added terminal emulation, do the devs still use something like screen/tmux?
I personally do. I think that probably most of the devs still do. Some users have said that they have transitioned to only using neovim, but tmux is still useful for having multiple sessions open at once, and also for disconnecting. So I know that Tiago is determined to probably make it so that tmux is no longer needed, but I think even he might still be using tmux for the time being.
Okay. Okay, I have a bunch of open-ended questions. The first one is this. Do you have any tips for learning Vim? Because many users just start to learn Vim and give up. So, any tips?
There's some work being done on enhancing Vim tutor mode. I hear that's a great way to learn Vim. I never used it myself. The other, I personally recommend the way that I fell into it, which is if you get if you get annoyed enough by the repetitive editing mechanics that you have to do every day, then you're eventually going to just be driven towards learning something like them. I don't know of anything else like them. You know, you could use evil mode in Emacs, but it's still going to be the same challenges of learning Vim. So just wait until you get annoyed enough so that it doesn't feel like work to learn it. Otherwise, if you try to force yourself to learn it before you prematurely, then you might not have the motivation to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
Okay, interesting. Okay, I forgot my question. Damn it. What was it? Okay, I think it was an interesting question. Okay, it was a question about plugins. So I know that you have a few plugins from GitHub, and I'm actually going to start using one of them, which is I forgot its name, but it does something like F something and T something, right? Well, it's more like that, and it's an interesting plugin, so I think I'm going to start using it. How did you write it? How did you decide to write it?
My plugins. Okay, Vim Sneak.
Yeah, Vim Sneak. Yes, that's the name. It's pretty cool plugin. So people who are watching this, you should check it out.
I wrote that because I looked at the implementation of Vim Seek, and I thought that it would be easier to do it. I thought of a much easier way to implement it, and then I just it started out as a little a blurb in my vimrc, and I eventually got good enough that I just released it as a plugin.
Mm-hmm.
And I added the easy motion mode because I realized that the conceal feature could be used to do what easy motion was using 2,000 lines to do. I was able to do it in about 200 lines, mm-hmm. Just using the Vim conceal feature. So I went ahead and added that as a feature. And in order to develop that, I think every Vim plugin, at least for Tim Pope and myself, I'm pretty sure this is how Tim Pope does his plugins. They start out as just like blurbs in his vimrc,
mm-hmm.
and you start to, and it sort of germinates in the back of your head, and eventually it turns into like a generalized form that can be applicable for other people, and then you release it as a plugin. I will say that Tim Pope, he polishes his plugins a lot more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
When I release mine. I'm okay with releasing unfinished plugins with some very, some ugly code in some cases.
Okay, this is actually pretty interesting answer. I mean, I never really thought that people just start writing plugins in the vimrc. It's pretty cool. Okay, so there is a question from chat: which operating system users does neovim focus the most?
What's the question?
I submitted it to your chat. Okay, let me send it again. What is Hangouts is annoying. So this is the question: which operating system users does neovim focus the most?
That's a trick question.
Huh?
That's a trick question. We love all operating systems equally, but technically we so far have concentrated on Unix because that was the staging ground, and now that the shape has formed, we can translate that over to OS 10. Well, it works fine on OS 10 because it's basically Unix, but we can translate it to Windows now and deal with the cross-platform issues that arise there.
Mm-hmm.
But our goal, we're absolute, Windows, OS 10, and Linux are all first-class targets for neovim, and as soon as we have a production, or as soon as we have a build for Windows that is usable for day-to-day work, I'm going to be personally paying a lot more attention to it because I'm going to be using it 40 hours a week because I develop on Windows during my day job.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Another open-ended question is this. There are people who are just starting to learn programming. They're just starting to learn, so they don't have professional experience, and there are many such people. And what advice would you give to those people on how to learn programming?
On how to program in general?
No, how to learn programming.
How to learn programming?
Yeah.
I personally, I think that you should start out with if you don't know anything about programming at all, use an IDE because it gives you immediate feedback. It gives you the pop-ups. It gives you really helpful tooltips. It doesn't require almost any configuration.
Mm-hmm.
IDEs are not easy to set up a lot of times, but I would say that they're working for them, but it's not going to work for too many other projects. And it's possible that they could be slightly disadvantaged by it, maybe, I guess, because they could have retained some contributors that may have
issues today. Sorry for that. Okay. I started. Now I'm going to start recording again. Okay. Okay. Can you see us? Okay, I'm going to check it. I think it works now, at least for me. Not sure though. Okay, great. People say that it works better. So, I'm running out of questions, so please ask your questions in chat. The picture is moving, so it's fixed now. So please ask your questions in chat because I'm running out of questions. I think I have had something else. Okay, another question from me. Did you try Emacs? And what do you think about Emacs?
I've spent a lot of time in Emacs. I gave it a shot for several months a couple of years ago, and I continue to maintain my Emacs configuration. There's some showstopper issues that prevent me from using it, but and there's some other there's many little minor issues that annoy me about it, which all could be fixed if I spent a lot of time fixing it. But as I alluded to earlier, I'm interested in fixing things for lots of people and not just myself. Mm-hmm. And the pattern that I tend to see Emacs users falling into is they'll do a lot of tweaking and fiddling and make it work for them, but trying to change Emacs so that it's generally more useful out of the box for everyone is a much more, it's pretty much impossible just due to the project management structure. Like for example, their Windows support is never going to be first class just because of GNU and FSF. And with neovim, we have a chance to give a really good experience, straight from neovim.io website to either new users or anyone who's just like spinning up a workstation or a temporary environment. You're not going to get that with Emacs. With Emacs, you're gonna have to tote around your giant Emacs configuration and install all your favorite plugins, it's only going to benefit you. The Emacs culture also is not really amenable to new front ends, which is a big part of the neovim strategy. Front ends that are using neovim as a core, but are using like .NET GUIs or something like that, something that is really pushing the operating system and the graphics library capabilities. With Emacs, you're just not going to see that, because if they can't make it work on every single platform identically and with like GNU code, then it's not.
Okay. Okay. So okay. Here's the question for. Okay, I think I tried to restart in streaming, so I think it should be fixed now. I don't know though. Okay. So okay. Question from chat. What do you think about this new everyone should learn programming movement? Stuff like code.org and various other similar organizations. Do you think it's just a new hip trend, or is it here to stay?
Is it the everyone should code movement?
Yeah, well, I would say that there are some people who are trying to push this.
I think I've been asked about this before. I think it's like, I don't have a problem with it personally, but it's sort of like the everyone should read movement, and the everyone should go to school movement, and the everyone should own a house. When you try to optimize for like one symptom, we have to have everyone doing this one thing. You'll get that eventually, but depending on how you got there, the result may not end up being what you expect. Like it may, if maybe everyone will learn how to code, but then I don't know, there could be suddenly like some corners of the economy or human culture might suddenly be getting less attention than they necessarily naturally would have been otherwise getting. If people, I mean, it also depends on like the degree of proficiency you're talking about. Like, I fully expect that everyone should code movement to declare victory once everyone's able to like write like a recipe in IFTTT or something like that. Then they're gonna say, yeah, look, see, everyone can code. All right, let's move on to the next shiny thing. But the fact, Excel has been around for 20 years and not everyone knows how to code. So Excel is like a thing that's, immediately useful, and it's there on everyone's desktop, and it has some pretty advanced coding features, and it's applicable for people in business, accountants, and some of them are able to use it to various degrees of proficiency. But if everyone isn't able to code on Excel, for the last 20 years, then I do not expect there to be much difference in the next 20 years for everyone being able to learn to code. I mean, maybe Chris, who's the author of Light Table? He's making a very interesting platform that takes an interesting perspective on a UI for people building workflows and getting results out of problems by structuring it like graphically and showing immediate feedback and being able to input data in novel ways. So maybe that is what was missing, and that will possibly catalyze more people to be able to find applications where Excel previously was some degree of too obtuse, for people to figure out how to apply things. But if that works, great. But I still don't. It's never going to be, it's never going to be everybody, because there's strata throughout, the economic roles that people play that is just not going to. People have to decide what to spend their time on, and a lot of people think that coding is the only thing that's going to be valuable in the future, but human services are still going to be really valuable as long as humans are around. So things like, entertainment, I don't know, giving people massages, whatever, that kind of stuff. People are going to continue to do those things, and they're not necessarily going to be spending their time learning to code. Learning languages, writing, books. I think that the Learn to Code movement is just somebody's pet project that went out of control.
Okay, interesting point. I actually agree. I must agree with it. Yeah. Okay, I think I ran out of questions. Yeah, I mean, I don't like when people just say like everyone should do this or everyone should do that. Yeah, so I agree with this completely. Okay. So do you have any questions, people? I've just checked Twitch chat and YouTube chat, and there are no questions. And chat on which people call this quiet too. So okay, I guess I ran out of questions too. So I guess we should end the stream now. By the way, do you have something? Well, maybe you'd like to tell something. Because I ran out of questions, and yeah. So.
I will sign off saying thank you to all the contributors of neovim, and I'm really impressed by the work that everyone is doing, and we need to work really hard on getting a release out